Today, we are diving into some of the most common English mistakes out there, and I'm talking about the ones that trip up pretty much everyone. Yep, even people who've been speaking English.
So let me ask you something. When you think of a native English speaker, do you picture someone with perfect grammar who never ever makes a mistake? Well, if you do, the reality might actually surprise you.
Yeah, the truth is they don't. Not even close. And you know what? That is completely okay. Making mistakes is just a normal part of speaking a language. Native speakers bend the rules all the time. Maybe because it's faster, or it's a regional thing, or just because language is constantly, and I mean constantly, changing. The goal here isn't perfection, it's just about being understood. All right, first up, let's wade into a real minefield of confusion. Words that sound exactly the same but mean totally different things. Let's get these sorted out once and for all.
Let's start with a classic, your versus your. They sound identical, right? And that's exactly why they get mixed up so much. Your is about possession. It belongs to you, like your teddy bear. But your is just the short way of saying you are, as in you're dancing. Here's the easiest trick ever. If you can swap in you are and the sentence still makes sense, you need that apostrophe. Simple as that.
Okay, next up is another pair that causes endless headaches. Than versus then. It really just comes down to that one little vowel. Than with an A is for making a comparison, like you're taller than someone or faster than something. Then with an E is all about time or what comes next. You do this, then you do that. One tiny letter, whole different meaning. Affect and effect. I think even professional writers have to pause for a second on this one. But here's the main difference. Affect with an A is almost always a verb. It's an action word. It means to influence something. The cold affects your mood. Effect with an E is the noun. It's the result, the outcome. And a great little trick to remember it is that the E in effect can stand for end result. And now for the triple threat, there, and there. Let's break this down super quick. There points to a place. A little hint is that it has the word here inside it. There shows ownership. It belongs to them, like their car. And finally, there is just the smooshed together version of they are. Three totally different words that just happen to sound exactly the same.
So this one isn't so much about meaning as it is just a super common typing mistake. And I see it a lot. A lot as one word, it's not a word. It doesn't exist. If you're talking about a large amount of something, it is always, every single time, two separate words. A lot.
Okay, let's move on to our next section, grammar mix-ups. You know, these are the rules that we all definitely learned back in school, but somehow they get a little fuzzy in the real world.
Okay, so I or me. This one sounds really complicated, but I promise there is the simplest test in the world for it. Just take the other person out of the sentence for a second. You wouldn't say, "Can you send this to I," would you? No, that sounds weird. You'd say, "Can you send this to me?" So there's your answer. The correct sentence is, "Can you send this to Michael and me?" That little trick works every time. This next one trips up so many people. What's the difference between fewer and less? Well, the whole rule just comes down to whether you can count the things you're talking about. If you can actually count them, like people or cookies, you use fewer. But if it's something you can't really count, like water or sand, you use less. So you have fewer cookies, but you drink less water.
Oh, this one is a classic. It's the infamous greengrocer's apostrophe. That's when people stick a random apostrophe on a word just to make it plural. You see it on signs all the time, and I've even seen it on wedding invitations. Just remember this. Apostrophes show possession, like the cat's toys, or they're used in contractions. That's pretty much it. They almost never make a word plural.
I could have helped. I should have known. We've all seen this one. This mistake comes purely from how we speak. When we say the contraction could have, it really does sound a lot like could have. But if you actually write it out, Of makes zero grammatical sense there. The word you're looking for is always have, could have.
This is a perfect example of a mistake we make just for speed. It's just so much faster and easier to say there's than it is to say there are. So in casual conversation, you're going to hear there's 30 people coming constantly. But if you're writing something or trying to be a bit more formal, remember, if you're talking about more than one thing, you technically need the plural there are.
All right, now we are entering the really tricky territory. These are the words and phrases that get misused so often that their wrong meaning is almost becoming the new right meaning. And believe me, it is not just you, these confuse everybody.
Let's kick things off with a big one, literally. Now, according to the dictionary, literally means something is exact, it's factual, there's no exaggeration at all. It's the total opposite of figuratively. But that's not really how people use it all the time, is it?
This is a perfect example of how the word is used today. I mean, obviously the dog wasn't the actual factual size of an elephant. Here, literally is just being used for emphasis, to add some punch. And while it's technically incorrect, this has become so incredibly common that some dictionaries have actually added it as a second definition. You're watching language evolve in real time. Now here's a phrase that can really spark a debate. In the UK, you'll probably hear "I couldn't care less." Logically, that makes sense, right? My level of caring is 0, so it's impossible for me to care any less. But in American English, you'll often hear "I could care less," which, if you think about it, means you actually do care a little bit. It doesn't really make sense, but it's used to mean the exact same thing. I don't care at all.
Okay, this one's a little more subtle, but it's a common one. When you ask a direct question, you flip the word order. Where's Diego? But when that question becomes part of a bigger sentence, it's called an indirect question, and the word order flips back to normal. I don't know where Diego is. The subject comes before the verb. So after going through all of these rules and mistakes and tricky words, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, but why does any of this really matter? Aren't we just splitting hairs here? Well, it all comes down to this. The real goal always is just clarity. The most important job of language is to make sure you're understood. And while all these rules are good to know, you have to remember that mistakes are totally normal. The real reason to learn about these pitfalls is just to become a clearer, more effective communicator, whether you're a native speaker or you're learning the language from scratch. And that leaves us with one last, really interesting question to think about. If a mistake becomes common enough that everyone uses it and understands it, well, at what point does it stop being a mistake? Are we just watching the messy, fascinating, and beautiful evolution of language happening right in front of us? Something to ponder.